For our top international story this hour, we are following news out of Poland, where this weekend hundreds of thousands of far-right demonstrators marched in the country's capital to mark 100 years of independence. In a state-sanctioned rally, Poles lit flares and chanted slogans such as "God, honor, and homeland," and "Refugees get out." A Polish court previously overruled a bid by Warsaw's mayor to ban the event, which has become a major gathering point for self-identified Nazis and fascists since it was first established in 2009. Government officials, including Polish President Andrej Duda, openly participated in the assembly.
I wish you a good celebration. Long live Poland. Long live the free, the independent, sovereign Republic of Poland. Honor and glory to the heroes.
With the Polish far right in question, we're joined now by political analyst at Sputnik Radio, Dmitry Babich. Dmitry, we've essentially witnessed a world leader march in the street openly with self-described Nazis and fascists. Do you think the international press has done this story justice?
Well, I think that certainly the international media has downplayed the significance of what's going on in Poland. The Polish government has been criticized by the European Union for being far-right, for being kind of very critical of the so-called European values. But there was not enough criticism of Russophobia, which has been rampant in Poland during the last at least 20 years. Unfortunately, it was not only the currently ruling party, Law and Justice, that is very anti-Russian. The so-called liberal opposition, the Civic Platform, is also very anti-Russian. So since it was officially allowed in Poland to be anti-Russian, little by little, all kinds of racists popped up on the surface, and now it is almost common to hear racist slurs in Poland. And this time, the government decided to basically, participate in this march, which is usually organized by the far right, in order to kind of legitimize it. So it's interesting that the government officials were marching next to far-right radicals, and basically the international media just preferred to ignore it.
Why is Poland historically such a hotbed for Nazi sentiment, and how does it relate to the Russophobia you've described?
Well, I wouldn't say that Poles themselves are somehow predisposed to racism. There are lots of decent, nice people in Poland. But unfortunately, back in the 90s, when Poland became independent of the Soviet bloc, it was kind of decided by the intelligentsia that ruled Poland. It was supported by the European Union that some kind of anti-Russian sentiment should be allowed, so that people would blame for their economic problems the big neighbor from the east, and not their own government, not the European Commission. But unfortunately, the genie of nationalism cannot be kept in a bottle. So when it was allowed, officially allowed, to insult Russia and to kind of fan Russophobic sentiment in society, very soon, anti-German, anti-EU, and the anti-European rhetoric also became commonplace. The currently ruling party, Law and Justice, is both anti-Russian and anti-European in its rhetoric.
The demonstrations were also extremely anti-refugee. That's despite the fact Polish troops actually participated in NATO's war on Iraq, while France and Germany, two countries which have bared the brunt of the migrant crisis, were opposed to the invasion and refused to participate. Considering how that war helped create so many refugees, do you see an irony there?
Well, yes, it's an irony of history, because the Polish government was very enthusiastic about going to Iraq together with Americans, about going to Afghanistan together with Americans and with some Europeans. And both of these campaigns turned out to be huge failures. In Poland, this is not stressed usually. The government prefers to remember the old stories of Soviet repression in Poland, which is, of course, true. It took place, but it was many years ago. And there were also many good things that the Soviet Union and Russia did to Poland. These things are now, unfortunately, forgotten. But you're absolutely right. There is no logic in the position of the Polish government. First, they went together with the Americans to Iraq, and when the refugees started to come from there, Poland basically declared the policy of zero tolerance to migration from the Middle East. I think that this is one of the reasons why Polish government is criticized by the European Commission, by the EU. But again, you have here a lot of disappointment on the side of Poles, because when Poland was joining the European Union in 2004, the European Union positioned itself as a peaceful, union of states, as a kind of oasis of peace in the middle of Europe. And that was not the case, because the EU member countries since then took part in the wars in Iraq, in the wars in Afghanistan, in Libya, and everywhere Poland had to participate. So people feel disappointed because they wanted to join the sphere of peace and prosperity, and they joined basically a union of countries which is at war with a lot of nations in the Middle East, with the powerful eastern neighbor Russia, and this is not what people in Poland expected.
And finally, in the little bit of time we have left, I'm wondering if you can talk about Polish President Andrej Duda, because he visited the White House earlier this year and suggested the U.S. should open a military base in his country, even saying perhaps it would be called Fort Trump. How close is he to these far-right forces in the country, and why is Poland a critical U.S. ally?
Well, you are absolutely right. The currently ruling party in Poland, Law and Justice, it has a very bad relationship with the European Union. So, by necessity, Law and Justice is trying to liaise with President Trump and with the American neoconservatives. The Polish government openly called for American nuclear weapons to be based on their territory. It tries to invite military contingents from the United States. This is not supported by a huge part of the population, but this is the way things are done in Poland right now. As for the relationship between Law and Justice and its representative Andrzej Duda with the far right, well, Polish government and the Polish president are often involved in nationalist rhetoric. If you look at the Law and Justice Party, it is certainly not a conservative party. It's a far-right party by the European standards. But unfortunately, again, I must remind you, the European Union supported the nationalist sentiment in Poland when it was directed against Russia.
Well,
so this is a byproduct of many years
we're unfortunately
of support
out of time, but it doesn't look like this story is going anywhere anytime soon, so we'll be covering it and talk to you in the future. Dmitry Babich, thanks so much for joining In Question today.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.